Joining me now is the former Liberal advisor David Gazard and former Labor advisor Eamon Fitzpatrick. Gentlemen, great to see you both. Eamon, it really is a new era for Victoria and Labor politics in Victoria.
Certainly is, Kieran. A big change. But, you know, the challenges are pretty clear, I think. I mean, and the key is getting out to define yourself as the incoming successor, such as Jacinta Allan, when you're taking over from someone who's been such a dominant force. I think we saw that in New South Wales when Bob Carr left, and it actually was, it became a partnership. It was Morris Yemma who was out there to quick to define himself with John Watkins. I mean, that partnership became critical, just as we have the case here, I think, with Jacinta Allan and Ben Carroll, just to sort of steady the ship very quickly. Change is always a big challenge, particularly in state politics. It's felt right through the ranks. And, you know, similarly in Queensland, I think when Anna Bligh took over from Peter Beattie, a huge personality, and her and Paul Lucas had to become a very, very quick team to try and get everything settled. And I can see already, you know, clearly, despite some of the suggestions in the past few days, we're starting to see that already. But, you know, you can't take anything for granted. I think for Jacinta Allan, there's a double challenge here. One is to really assert herself, taking over from that Andrews legacy and defining the future. And then I think she's got to be careful that she doesn't get lulled into a false sense of security. Her opponent is clearly struggling. I mean, John Pesutto can't even get his own side to support him. The danger is there, of course, is that you sort of write him off as well.
Well, it's a chance for them to regroup as well, isn't it, David, with the departure of such an imposing figure as Andrews?
Look, I think Eamon's right, and let's not mince words. The Victorian opposition has been in shambles. This enables a reset, and if they get their act together, they can actually take advantage of this change. The one thing I'd note, because I think Eamon is completely right about Carr and Yemma. I worked in that parliament over that period. They were two figures from the right, whereas Jacinta Allan takes over from Daniel Andrews as the socialist left at a time where the state is mired in debt, has a lot of economic troubles, is going to be confronting a whole range of cost of living things. And Jacinta Allan is already starting to talk about treaties and so on and so forth, which is off the main game. She should be looking at, you know, what the party is telling her around polling, where people's priorities are, and if she doesn't, that will buy John Pesutto back in a major way.
Eamon, the other really interesting thing to monitor this week has been the Labor caucus, particularly the right faction, saying enough's enough. They've put up with Dan Andrews, the centralisation of control and power in his office, and as it's been described, the autocratic approach from Andrews, but they won't under Jacinta Allan, and already you see it by the fact that they've forced a deal to be done so that Ben Carroll could get deputy. It's very clear to see how all that transpired, that they made that happen.
Yeah, well, so look, that's a good point, Kieran. But, you know, the dynamic does change. When you deliver government to the party, as Dan Andrews has done, I think you're within your rights to dictate how things take place. Whereas I think when the party gives you government, as it were, and your colleagues do, the expectations are slightly different. Regardless, you know, Dan Andrews had to weather his own challenges. It's no mean feat. He maintained authority through some of the trickiest periods, I think, any state government has had to go through, and particularly looking at COVID and what that meant. Having said that, it is all change. It is an opportunity to reset, set a new course, but keeping the colleagues on side is going to be critical. And I think Ben Carroll, you know, is someone who's ultimately suited to be that partner to Jacinta Allan, his own background, his own breadth of experience in those portfolios. And he's definitely got that energy. Clearly, he's the guy the right are looking to bring this together for them.
Daniel Andrews didn't just impose his way or the highway on his own party. It was something, David, I'm interested in your view on this as someone who's watched politics and the media for so long. He basically just did it as he wanted to, in terms of not engaging with, say, some of the traditional media, whether it be the ABC or 3AW. He just did his engagement via social media. He'd show up to the cameras every day, certainly during COVID, and just went around the traditional media in many respects.
He did. He started in office by spending $1 billion to not build a road. He disappeared in the middle of COVID and didn't tell anyone where he was for 3 months. He had 800 people die on his watch in quarantine. He had the whole red shirt scandal. This was a guy who was floating way up close to the sun, and he looks like, and he's never fallen to earth. I mean, he's picked the timing of his own exit and done it brilliantly from that perspective. But if you look at it, we've had the fragmenting of traditional media and the rise of social media. But at the same time, you can only defy the laws of political gravity if the opposition is weak. So if John Pizzuto can pull his team together, use this as a break from the past and start to work over the legacy of this government, because it's only Daniel Andrews and Anastasia Palaszczuk who are the remaining premiers after COVID, or everyone else is gone or they've been dealt with by the people and moved on. So I think he probably knew his time was coming up, but if they can get their act together and actually be cohesive and develop some themes and messages that are relevant to the people of Victoria that come out of the legacy that Dan Andrews has left, they'll be in with a good chance, and it becomes very, very difficult for Jacinta Allen.
Whether you love him or loathe him, Eamon, I know from first hand when moderating that leaders' debate, the People's Forum in the lead up to the election, there's the difference in calibre between Andrews as a political communicator and advocate. The potency of him as a politician versus Matthew Guy was just like chalk and cheese. He was one of the most potent state political figures we've seen in recent decades.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, people like that become more formidable the longer they are in office. And we've seen, you know, he really sort of is a great reminder of some of those really strong Labor leaders, whether it is a Peter Beattie or an Anna Bligh, you know, whether it is, a Bob Carr or a Rand. I mean, just it really sort of comes from that era. And, you know, anyone going up against him, you know, really has to double or triple their efforts just to be able to hold their own. I think with these guys, the longer they're in office, the easier it is for them, the better understanding they have of the electorate, of the task of communicating. You know, communicating is such a critical element of the job. Yes, it's leadership. Yes, it's how you posture yourself in your government, managing your colleagues, but just communicating, being able to really hit that note within the electorate. I'll tell you the other person who clearly has that at the moment, Chris Minns. When you look at Chris Minns here in New South Wales, very similar, and he is at the beginning, I think, of his spell. So, but I agree, Dan Andrews is clearly, he goes out as the master of his game.
Eamon, Gaz, great to see you both. See you shortly.